Hey, Randy Hunter here from BeginningSax.com. In this quick licks and tips video, I want to talk with you about enclosures. Now, the lick I just played was full of enclosures that are targeting various chord tones on a C7 chord. I'll show you that whole lick in a few minutes after we have a quick little discussion about these enclosures. In fact, if you want to learn more about enclosures, be sure to check out my newest lesson in my Soloing on Tunes series called Soloing on Tunes, Scrapple from the Apple. So it's all about bebop components. So the enclosure is a typical bebop enclosure or a bebop component that was used by guys like Charlie Parker or Sonny Stitt. And really, if you listen back before bop, you would hear enclosures by even Coleman Hawkins and, believe it or not, Louis Armstrong. You would hear Louis Armstrong use enclosures as well. So enclosures are kind of a long-standing component of the jazz language. An enclosure, like it sounds, is a group of tones that enclose or surround a chord tone. So let's say we're going to enclose a B natural. We've got a B natural, a half step above the B is a C natural, a half step below the B is a B flat. So I'll have a chromatic enclosure by playing C, B flat, B. I could invert that and play B flat, C, B. And I've still got an enclosure. Now, and that's a completely a fully chromatic enclosure. I could also have maybe a diatonic chromatic enclosure. Say if I was on an E7 chord and maybe playing a C sharp, I'm targeting the B, so I go from the C sharp, which is a scale tone above the B, to a B flat, which is a chromatic tone below the B, and then land on the B. So there I've got a diatonic chromatic enclosure. And there's also the three-note enclosure. So and I really love these three-note enclosures, that's when you have a half step above your target tone, you drop to a whole step below the target tone and chromatically approach the target. Well, with the destination being the target. So I've got a half step above the B, that's the C natural. I'll drop to a whole step below the B, which is A, and then climb up A sharp and land on B. Now, you really heard Charlie Parker use that enclosure a lot. If you've ever heard this lick, and I bet you if you've listened to much Charlie Parker, you've heard very common sound from Charlie Parker. And just a great bebop sound to have in your vocabulary. So, you can enclose any tone that's on any chord tone. So like if you're on C7, and let's go back to the opening enclosure I played in the video today. So I'm targeting first the 7th of the C7 chord, and this is a three-note enclosure. I started a half step above it, which is the root. The C, I dropped to a whole step below the B. Let me start over again. I started a whole step above the 7th because our 7th is B flat. So I started on C, C, B, A, B flat. So there I'm enclosing the B flat, the next component of the lick. I think that's what I played a moment ago. So I'm targeting the 5th, the G, so I dropped to a half step below the G, F sharp. I went to a whole step above it, again another three-note enclosure, to the A flat, G. So let's put together what we've got so far. Now I'm going to enclose the 3rd. So I'll go to a half step above the 3rd. Our 3rd on a C7 chord is an E natural. So I'm going to go to F. Another three-note enclosure, so let me drop to a whole step below the E to the D natural, D, D sharp, E. So I've got F, D, D sharp, E. And while we're in the middle of these three-note enclosures, let me just go ahead and target the root with another three-note enclosure. I'll start with a whole step above the C, and our C is the root again. So D to a half step above the C, which is C sharp, to a half step below the C, which is B, and I'll land on the target. So targeting the 7, targeting the 5th, targeting the 3rd, targeting the root. then you could perhaps take that little exercise and apply it to any dominant chord that you wanted to. Now, remember, check out my Soloing on Tunes lesson, Soloing on Tunes, Scrapple from the Apple at beginningsax.com, and you'll learn a lot more about these enclosures and how they can be combined with other bop components like bebop scales to make complete bebop phrases, or even just bop style phrases, or just really cool jazz phrases. Okay, take care.